Hey YouTube, here we are, Cedar Lake, Indiana, at the German Methodist Episcopal Cemetery. We're here to show you one grave, a victim of the shotgun killer of Northwest Indiana back in 1990. He randomly killed 7 people in Northwest Indiana for absolutely no reason. And we got one victim here, Ronald J. Beckett. She was in Cedar Lake at a gas station there, the Petro Mart, and he just come up and shot her in the head. She was with a friend, and the friend survived, thank God. But this poor woman here died for absolutely no reason. And this guy went around in Hammond, Portage, Gary, Cedar Lake, and just randomly shooting people. So we're going to tell you the whole story today and visit this grave. And so let's check it out. But here's Rhonda Beckett, March 2nd, 1965, and that horrible day, October 30th, 1990. Just an innocent victim of a friggin' idiot. It's a damn shame that happens, but it does. But we're just gonna do this one cemetery here, and we're gonna tell you all about it. So here we go.
It was like nothing Northwest Indiana had seen before. Within less than 2 months, in late 1990s, a shotgun killer took the lives of 7 people and wounded or fired shots at several others at seemingly random sites scattered through Lake and Porter counties. Those killed were shot at close range, mostly in the head. The crime scenes were grisly. The shootings began October 30th, 1990, when Lawrence E. Mills, 43 of Hammond, was shot in the head as he sat in his car outside American Legion Post 66 in Griffith. Within hours, Mills was dead, and shots had been fired at a 34-year-old woman in Griffith and a 16-year-old girl in St. John. A 28-year-old woman who survived a shooting that same night in Cedar Lake told police her friend Rhonda L. Hammersley, 25 of Lowell, was gunned down as they talked after work outside the Petro Mart at 133rd Avenue and Fairbanks Street. When she saw a shotgun pointed at her, she put her head down as another shot was fired. Played dead and heard a voice say, "Okay, that's enough, let's go." Retired FBI agent Mark Becker and former Porter County Chief Deputy Prosecutor Gwen Rinkenberger recalled in a recent interview. The St. John girl initially told police her attacker was black. For unknown reasons, her description was changed to white or light-skinned in a police report, Becker said. The description of a white man matched the description given by the survivor in Cedar Lake. That first night, that is where some confusion entered the investigation and put us down the wrong path, Becker said. When the killer struck again in mid-December, police scrambled to find him. They formed a multi-agency task force, meeting in a donated space off US 30 and fielding tips using phone lines donated by NITCO. Multiple witnesses described a small, white, boxy car. Drivers began to watch their rearview mirrors and leave at least a car length's distance between vehicles, on the off chance they could become the elusive killer's target. Police felt the pressure from the public and government officials to solve the case. Tensions mounted among task force members. "I think the public was becoming frustrated because we could not solve this thing immediately," Becker said, "and of course we were doing everything we could do working all these late hours? What police later learned was that the killer wasn't working alone. Christopher Peterson was later changed his name to Obadyah Ben-Yisrayl, was a black man with a deep dislike for white people. Records state, a day after his arrest, he confessed to killing 7 people and wounding 2 more. Peterson, now 51, later denied any involvement. 6 murder victims were white, while the 7th was from the Indian subcontinent of Asia. Peterson's friend Ronald J. Harris, now 51, was of mixed race and accompanied him on several of the shootings. Detectives from various agencies interviewed Harris several times before Becker and his partner, FBI agent Tom Ellison, secured a confession. Throughout the investigation, detectives brought shotguns and ballistics evidence collected from the shooting scenes to the Lake County Sheriff's Department crime lab in the basement, what it was now the old Lake County Jail building. Retired Sheriff Police Captain Kevin Judd had completed his training as a firearms examiner just 4 months before the shooting began when he caught a career case, he said. A lot of shotguns were coming in because of this task force, Judd said, so it was kind of on a regular basis. We were looking at shotguns that may or may not be the one. None of the guns was the one until January 29, 1991, when police arrested 21-year-old Antoine McGee of Gary after a car chase linked to a robbery and shooting the night before that wounded a restaurant worker, making a night cash drop at the Gaynor Bank branch by South Lake Mall. McGee, now 51, admitted he was involved in the robbery but then dropped a bomb on investigators. McGee's 22-year-old friend Christopher Peterson, an AWOL Marine, was the shotgun killer, McGee said. McGee knew everything, Rinkenberger said. He knows Peterson. He had information about all the murders, what they did, where they went, why they did it, and how much money they got, she said. So on January 30th, they had a full outlay of the case from Antoine McGee. This is what really broke it. McGee just spilled the beans. Police didn't suspect McGee was at any of the shotgun shooting scenes. McGee had gone to high school with Peterson, and they rekindled a friendship in September 1990. On Halloween night that year, Peterson arrived at McGee's home with a pocket full of money, according to McGee's statement. About 3 or 4 days later, Peterson visited McGee again and told him, I'm going to tell you something that would put me away for the rest of my life. You know all those murders? That was me. McGee told police Peterson admitted he killed a man in Griffith during a robbery, then went to Cedar Lake where he shot a woman outside a car and another inside a car. The facts matched the evidence police found at the scenes of the crimes. According to McGee, Peterson admitted someone was with him at some of the shootings, but Peterson never told McGee who that person was. Police had a strong suspicion it was Harris, Becker said. McGee told investigators he showed Peterson a police composite picture which depicted a light-skinned man that had appeared in the newspaper, and Peterson replied, those stupid fools thinks it's a white guy. Peterson admitted he killed a man at the Gaynor Bank ATM in Gary Miller section, fatally shot a woman at the Howard Johnson Hotel in Portage, and shot a man at a toll booth on the Indiana Toll Road in Hammond. He said that he did them so far apart to make it look like 3 different people did these, McGee's statement said. Harchand S. Dalawal, 54 of Gary, was shot to death December 13, 1990, inside the Hudson Oil Station at 5340 US 6 in Portage. Several $100s in cash were missing from the scene. On December 15, 1990, Ora L. Waldermuth, 54 of Lake Station, was shot multiple times alongside an ATM at the Gaynor Bank branch at 8120 Mountain Road in Gary Miller section, and Maria Metzler, 48 of South Haven, was fatally shot inside the Howard Johnson Motor Lodge, 6161 Melton Road in Portage. That same night, a 48-year-old Hammond man lost part of his right ear after a man fired a shotgun at him as he worked inside a toll booth at the Hammond interchange on the eastbound Indiana Toll Road. McGee told police he met up with Peterson hours after brothers Eli Belovitsky, 60, of Crown Point, and George Belowski, 66, of Gary, were gunned down inside Eli's Quality Tailoring for Way in Gary. Peterson allegedly told McGee, "I got somebody else on 45th tonight." Christmas came and went as police and region residents wondered when the next shooting might happen. Tragedy struck when a 31-year-old Cherville man who worked for Diamond Dave's restaurant was shot with a handgun and wounded in the robbery outside the Gaynor Bank branch near South Lake Mall. Lake County Sheriff Police were dispatched to assist officers at the scene who had learned the employee's car also had been stolen. Police relayed a license plate number and description of the missing car to dispatchers. While investigators were still on scene, they heard radio communications indicating Gary police thought they had spotted the stolen car in the area of Ridge Road and Georgia Avenue. They gave chase, and McGee and another man were taken into custody. McGee led police to Peterson's mother's home in the 3700 block of Jackson Street in Gary. She later disputed whether she gave police permission to search her apartment. Investigators found a shotgun in the closet to a bedroom where Peterson slept. Officers later testified they seized a 12-gauge sawed-off shotgun only because it was illegal, not because they initially suspected Peterson of any role in the shotgun slaying. It was only when McGee implicated Peterson that the sheriff's crime lab was asked to compare the gun to evidence of the case. Judge, the firearms examiner, already had determined that cartridge casings of several of the scenes were fired from the same gun. When detectives brought him the gun from Peterson's home, he initially compared it with the cartridge casings with the best tool marks on it. Lieutenant J. Gaither, the firearms examiner who trained Judge, also looked at the evidence and they agreed on what they saw, Judge said. "I could kind of see those marks in my sleep," Judge said. "I just kind of knew what they looked like, so it was almost like when I first saw it. I recognized it without even having a comparison, but of course you do the direct comparison." Being able to conclude police finally had the gun felt good, he said. "It's up to the detectives to show where they got it, to show who owns it, but my job was to identify the firearm, and now we have it," he said. "It was like that was the end of the quest. We were at the end of the journey for that particular quest." After police seized the gun and other evidence, Peterson's mother led them to his girlfriend's apartment and persuaded him to surrender. January 29, 1991. A day later, Peterson signed a series of statements during interviews with Porter County Sheriff's Detective Sergeant Chip Yanta, Portage Detective Sergeant Dave Reynolds, and others admitting to all 7 murders and 2 attempted murders. Peterson told police, "I get these rages to hurt everyone now and then, and I just have this vengeance on white people," according to the statement. Long before Peterson was a suspect, the FBI Behavioral Science Unit told investigators the suspect likely experienced a traumatic event in his life. Peterson told detectives the killings also were fueled by drugs and alcohol, but he didn't recall many details. However, he provided enough information that investigators were sure they had the right man. Peterson never told the police about Harris, but officers on the task force strongly believed another person was involved. "We knew of Ronald Jeffrey Harris' relationship with Chris Peterson," he said. "Detectives from Griffith, Maryville, and the U.S. Marshal Service had interviewed Harris twice before Becker and Allison sat down with him February 7, 1991. It took a long time, but Harris finally gave police enough information to tie the handgun used in the shooting at the bank by South Lake Mall to Peterson. I remember he got up and he was putting on his coat and he said, 'Okay, am I okay to go?' I knew that Peterson had not implicated him at all, but I knew he had to have been the guy, so I kind of posed with, I guess we refer to it as bait question. And I said, Peterson has admitted to these shootings, so he's given a lot of statements against his own interests. So obviously, if he says you were there, then I gotta believe you were there." Becker assured Harris that Harris could have been there when Peterson went off, but that didn't mean Harris was guilty of anything. Maybe Harris should have told police about it, but Becker understood Harris might have been in fear for his life. I remember he looked out the window and he said, "Did he really tell you what?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, I was there for that one." And I said, "Okay, well, have a seat." Harrison sat down, and Becker thought he was going to talk about the shooting in Cedar Lake where the woman who survived described her attacker as a light-skinned man, but he didn't. Harris told investigators about Dollawall's murder in the Hudson Oil gas station on US 6 in Portage. Harris said he and Peterson were driving down US 6 when an older white man cut off Peterson, and Peterson became enraged. He said Peterson stopped at the gas station, took a shotgun out of the back seat, and went inside with it under his coat. He hears a noise. Peterson comes back with money in his hands. It's got blood on it, and he throws it at Harris. Harris claimed he freaked out and asked Peterson why he did it. The admission wasn't enough to arrest Harris on suspicion of anything more than failure to provide information to police. During the interview, Becker also asked Harris if he had changed his appearance. He just looked at me and said, "You're trying to say I was a white guy? I mean, you knew where we were going with it." Harris went on to draw diagrams of the crime scenes that matched the facts of the case. Ringenberger said the woman who survived the Cedar Lake shootings later identified Harris and his voice as her attacker in a live lineup. Peterson was acquitted of the murders of Mills, Hammersley, and Wildermuth, and convicted of killing Metzler and the brothers in the tailor shop. Harris was convicted in the killing of Hammersley and Dollawall. Jurors who acquitted Peterson in the Mills and Hammersley murders later said reasonable doubt was created by Cedar Lake woman's testimony that it was not Peterson who shot Hammersley, and by the confusion over the original description of a white man as a killer. Becker said he strongly believed Harris was the shooter in Cedar Lake. Law enforcement officials also pointed to a bloody palm print found at the inside interior door of Mills' car. The palm print matched Peterson, but a Lake County judge tossed the evidence before Peterson's trial. I do not know the legal basis for the ruling, but as a result, the Lake County prosecutors were prohibited from presenting that key piece of evidence at trial, which had a negative impact on their cases going forward. Looking back, Becker said obtaining Harris's confession was a relief for the entire task force. Just because Allison and I obtained the confession from Harris, this is not the FBI victory. I could not tell you how many of those officers spent Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve away from their families, following leads. It was a task force accomplishment. I mean, everyone contributed equally. Peterson's arrest initially stoked racial tension in the region because it was black and police had been saying they were looking for a white man. Becker said he hoped the public considered all the evidence presented during the men's trial and came to believe police arrested the right man. I can tell the public today that I'm absolutely certain that the two people that were charged and convicted for these crimes are the two people that did them. Harris and Peterson, end of story. He was acquitted in 2 trials for 3 of the murders and found guilty of 4 murders in 2 subsequent trials. He received 120 years imprisonment.